Thank you, listeners and affiliates, for making the FishyFins.com internet radio network a success.
West Wall Boats, kayak experts selling the only pedal kayak with a reverse
So we just landed about 150 to 65 pound tarpon. We're now floating to revive her.
Well, it's turning out to be a beautiful week. We had a real sunny weekend. I went out fishing Saturday morning and Sunday morning, got a couple of snook, a couple of really big jacks. Just playing on the top water, having a good time over at Spring Lake, over at the east and west side both, over by the ramp, and just beautiful weather. Really great time to get out there and do some fishing. Matter of fact, Chris gave me a call yesterday morning, and he's like, hey, let's get out and do a little fishing. What are you doing? So I figured, why not? Let's go. So we hopped in his boat and shot out to the Myakka and did some fishing up and down the Myakka just before the bridge, you know, around the mangroves and around the cutoff area. Really had a great time out there. So, you know, you get a chance to get out there, do a little fishing. You're going to really enjoy it. We have some video that we took out there of getting on some big redfish, some big snook. So we're going to have that in our next show with Coach Chris Taylor. But today we're talking to Scott Larsen. And Scott is a pro staffer. He represents a lot of national companies like Procure, Impact Lures. He's got a lot of them. I can't even go through all of them. 12 Phantom, you know, a couple of nice. Producto, also Producto he reps for. And we're going to talk to Scott. I asked him, hey Scott, what do you want to do the next show about? And he said, you know what, I just like to talk about fishing. And Scott just want to talk about freshwater fishing, saltwater fishing, fishing all around Florida, and has some great advice. Scott likes to fish the inland waterways, a lot of ponds, canals, a lot of held up lakes in Florida that you could really have a good time with. So we got some great pictures and video from Scott on this show, and you know, he's got some great information. I had a great talk with him. I love talking to Scott. He's just a real smart guy, really knows Florida water. So we talk about everything from Charlotte Harbor to Pasco County, St. Pete, Tampa, Tarpon Springs, saltwater fishing inland, offshore, and then get right on over to some bass fishing. And so, great show. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me not waste any more time, and let's get out to Scott.
Hello?
Hey, Scott, good morning.
Oh, how you doing, Frank? What you doing this morning?
Oh, same old fun stuff. Got up, made a little bit of coffee, and taking a look at all these great Facebook posts. Everybody's catching fish. I'm finally on there with one myself.
Yeah, I saw you up there with a redfish there. That looks like fun.
Yeah, you know, there were a couple of little guys out there we were playing with. It was one of those crazy days on the water where everything kind of looks good, but the fish just aren't in the mood. But we got a couple of little guys. Why not? We had a good time.
Yeah, I can't wait to get out there Saturday. It's been 3 weeks. It rained. I had the tournament. I'm ready to get back there Saturday, get in some snook and some redfish.
Boy, I'll tell you what, you won't have to look far on the Gulf Coast of Florida right now. We were out there. Even though we weren't really getting a lot. Now, Chris caught a couple of nice snook. He was playing out there with me a little bit, but there were some gigantic snook up there laying up underneath the mangroves. They're just, you get out there in that real hot part of the day, and they hide in the shadows and in the mangroves, and boy, they were just some beauts out there. I know you're going to have a great time when you go out.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to just start throwing them plugs up against the banks and see what I can do. I'm actually going to go, like, really early, 2, 3 in the morning. That's what I like, catching my big snook is usually at night. And nobody can really follow you, where you're going. I don't like people, I don't want them
all the
poaching them out there, and knowing the spot. But get a lot of snook and tarpon and big redfish like that at night. So
I'll bet. I've never tried that, boy. I wouldn't mind taking a trip up there one weekend and just checking that out. That'd be cool.
Yeah, you got to make a trip up here, and it's got to be a full moon week. And that's when they feed heavy at night.
Is that right?
And that's what I usually do, a lot of trips, trying through all that week. I plan on, because it's hot, and it cools down, and they got more light to feed, and you end up hanging them tarpon. All kinds of species are out there feeding at night.
Boy, I could imagine. I've been night fishing, I think, since I was a teenager, and it's it's real popular around here for the deep water stuff. Playing with sharks. Covials will come in a little bit more shallow. The real big guys, definitely the big sharks. There was I saw on Fox News they had a couple out there on Boca Grande that pulled in. I think it was if I remember correctly, a 13-foot hammerhead. They were able to tag it and release it. But so those big sharks do come in at night. They were fishing at night. But boy, I'll tell you what, coming into these flats like you're talking about, getting snook and reds and that in the flats, and then even up into the channels with the tarpon, that would be a lot of fun on a full moon at night.
Yeah, it's hard to get used to. A lot of people, even me, I throw into the mangroves. You have to go get it, But try to, go parallel with it. Get your trolling motor and your power pole, and set up on a point where the tide's, breaking out like an eddy for your snook. And just throw it in there and don't, try to keep it in that one spot without, dragging it all the way out, because you only got a window maybe 4 foot away from that bank line. And then, snook out there, they'll shoot out there and get it, but the reds and everything else, they kind of stay really tight to that mangrove line. But we have 30, 40-pound tarpon will hang, and then they hang up in the mangroves. You have to go get them. It's fun. It's just worried about losing some plugs, but it's worth it for some trophy fish, and that's all it's about when I go fishing. It's got to be the biggest fish, or I'm not happy.
That's fantastic. You're right about the mangroves. That's for sure. When I was out there playing yesterday, I had gotten on and I lost one. I'm sure it was a snook, because like you said, it came darting out and grabbed my bait and then took off right for the mangroves again. And I made the mistake of letting my rod tip get a little bit high, and when they shoot under those mangroves, you've really got to get your rod tip low and get underneath those roots, or they're going to wrap up those oysters under the roots and forget about it. It's gone. And so I did lose one fish because I kind of messed up and I wasn't ready for those mangrove roots, and I should have got my pole tip down low, but it happens. You lose a couple of big ones and you learn.
Yeah, it's especially at night. It's hard to do. You automatically got to put it down because you don't see where your line's going.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard to stop a big torpedo snook. There are such a strong fish when they surge, and there's really nothing you can do.
Oh, they're monsters. Chris had one on yesterday on the electric chicken he was playing with out there, and he loves that color out there. And he's, matter of fact, using that Pro Cure that you like. He got the. I told him about that saltwater scent, and we tried that, picked it up on the way out there. And so we put a little of that on there, and it was good. It was, that red saltwater scent. I think it's a mix of crabs and herring, quite a few different things mixed in. And so he put that on there, and I'll tell you what, within 10 casts, he had a snook, and I hope I got to go through the video. We've got that thing jumping.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Is so. I want to get back down there so bad. You're killing me, because when I fished down there in Punta Gorda, I only fished down there twice, and I was like, I couldn't believe how many snook were around. You know, I was running over the redfish, you know, because I was having people marking me, and you know, and I was like, well, shoot, since I'm here, I might as well catch these snook, you know.
Yeah.
And then I heard a lot of people said there's some huge ones up in the river. And then you said, what happened? Somebody got like a 41-pounder?
Well, you know what? I've been trying to call this guy out on it, and he has. I think it was all BS.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's trying to push his. He's got a brand of lures here locally, and they don't work bad. You know, I've seen some pictures. You know, legitimate pictures. A couple of guys that have used them. Chris caught a nice snook on one of them about a week ago or so out there playing with one of his friends. And but it was one of those big claims, and you know, I've called the guy on his personal number twice, you know, just to talk to him about it, and he hasn't called me back. And,
okay.
You know, anybody looking to sell a lure.
Story.
Yeah, you know, anybody looking
pictures,
to sell a lure.
man.
Send me pictures, send me video, or at least talk to me. So I think it was just a whole lot of Facebook BS. You know, you get a lot of that. I've even seen people paste pictures of fish onto their baits and try to pass it off as, look what I caught in this.
Yeah, look what I caught in. It's like, man, you don't have Bahama water.
No, exactly. I was like, wow, that's some volcano in the background. What part of Florida are you in?
Hawaiian people in the background.
Hysterical. But they do it, you know. What are you going to do? You try to sift through all that and get a little truth, you know.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's funny.
I got a kick out of it, but you know, we did pretty good. I like that top water lure from Impact. It worked really nicely. I got a couple of nice reds on it, and I did get a lot of snook chasing it. Now, I think I was playing with top water. You know, when I get a bait like that, I'll beat it to death, even though it's really not the right time or water to use it. I'll try it anyway just to learn how to work it. And so, you know, and I noticed Chris was staying under. He was at least, you know, 3 foot under the surface or on the bottom playing with jigs and with jerk baits and stuff. So he was getting a little more of the action, and but I tell you what, it did get a lot of attention. I got a couple of nice reds on it. I definitely had a few big snook chase it to the boat, and I just spooked them out because I think I got a little giddy myself playing with the snook. And but it's a good bait.
Yeah, because when they hit the plug, you know, you're going to get a big fish. And y'all was fishing in the middle of the afternoon too, right?
Oh yeah, we were out really hot. It was we got out there off the ramp about 1:30, and from about probably 2 o'clock till probably about 7 o'clock we finally gave up. And it was definitely, it had to been 90 degrees out, very little cloud cover, and it was cooking.
Yeah, another lure I want you to try is that Phantom 12 White right now. Yeah, and put your Pro Cure on it, and then you know, throw that. You could throw that during the day and night, and you will catch a lot of fish on that, especially your snook fishing. The white is really, it looks, I guess it's like a bait. It looks like a bait fish flashing around. So try that one next time you go out, because you'll tear the snook. That's why I was catching the snook down there in Punta Gorda.
Well, you know, I could see that because when we were out there, once we had a really slight moving outgoing current. It just wasn't really moving fast, but even with that little current through that cutoff area, it got pretty muddy. So I could see where a white bait would really get a lot more attention jerking through the water like that.
Actually, in the clear water, it works really well. It was pretty clear. It was.
Oh, is that
it was
nice.
Yeah, it was pretty clear. I mean, crystal clear. Was still a little chilly, and they were eating it up. You know, just bouncing it, and you can see them. It's so cool when they start swimming around and going nuts over it, and then they hit it. It's crazy when they do that.
Oh,
but it catches trout, big redfish, but mostly the snook, the trout, and the tarpon that hit it. That's my favorite.
It is, you know, and that's really the white bait all around here. There is a lot of white bait, and you know, as a matter of fact, when we were out there, we saw a lot of the locals, especially the charter fishermen that take guys out on fishing charters here. They'll go out and try to collect some bait. You know, it used to be big with the white bait to get most of the other, you know, the reds and the trout up on the flats, but these guys are getting some of these big snooks, so they're looking for sand brim. And so they're out there trying to get these, and these sand brim that they're getting, I mean, they're at least as big as my hand, if not bigger.
Yeah, you can eat them, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. Actually, sand brim are very good eating fish.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up eating sand brim around here, and they're about as tender as a snook is. They're really a white meat, and they're pretty bloody when you cut them.
Okay.
You know, the snooks seem to just explode on those boogers, and you know, you hit the sand brim are kind of like the trout with their scales. You know, they get hit pretty hard by a fish, and those scales just come raining down. And I don't know what it is about those brim, but these big snook up here, especially around Placida, down around Cape Hayes, and you get into the west wall of Charlotte Harbor, these snook just love them. I mean, they love those brim.
Yeah, I heard a lot of, I never messed with them, but I heard a lot of people fishing with them, and they catch a lot of big snook on them.
Oh yeah, you know, if you can mimic the local water bait, and that's like you're saying with that white bait, any kind of a white jerk bait that gives you that white look darting through the water like these sand brim do, you know, big snook are going to be all over them, because you know that's what they're looking for, those big white bait.
Yeah, a pilchard or you know anything that looks like maybe a flashing mullet or a ladyfish. Snook love ladyfish too. I mean, it's a long meal for them there. They don't have to eat a whole bunch, you know.
They are, and they are a bloody fish too.
Yeah, it's a bloody fish, you know.
They will make a mess, but they, like you say, they dart through the water. They move fast, and they excite the snook into striking. So they definitely love them suckers.
Yeah, you could cut them up in steaks and fish them on the bottom, and they eat them too. The snook will.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's and you know what, Scotty, you come down here, and the truth of the matter is, all of Charlotte Harbor, Placida, the Turtle Bay area, you get up into Boca Grande. We just go from, you know, the juvie snook up in the mangroves that are in the shallow water up to gigantic monsters floating around the intercoastal up here. So there is some great snook fishing around here. Even though you can't keep them right now, you know, we don't keep them anyway. You know, we just throw snook back.
Yeah, that's what I do. I release them.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since I kept the snook, since the freeze up here. You know.
Yeah, it's been, you know, they're coming back good. We're seeing the real big, you know, the big snook with the rows up here now, and then you're starting to see a good population returning. So it's really good to see. And I'll tell you what. I think this may be the best year Charlotte County has had in fishing in a long time, at least before the freeze. So it's been a good year.
Yeah, last year when we fished in Ruskin, you know, it's pretty funny when snook is a problem when you're red fishing, you know? And I'm like, well, these little jokers are really coming back. And then I hung probably a 45-incher in the river. You know, I started targeting snook a lot, and I was hanging, you know, 30, 38s, but that one I missed, and she survived that freeze. I mean, we got a few breeders out there. It's, you know, but the little guys are just abundant now.
Yeah, the juvies are everywhere. It's matter of fact, we were trying to avoid getting close to the mangroves because there were so many little guys up in there. And so yeah, they're all over any bait that hits the water, the juvies. So yeah, you're right. There's a nice population returning to the waters, that's for sure.
And they're fun to catch too. You know, I like to get a fly rod and catch them little jokers. You know, and that's the red tide hit real bad, and then the freeze, and I mean it's a pain because I have to go search for these fish, and these fish are just scattered. You know. Since the red tide hit in 05, you know, it's the fishing's really been bad. I mean, it's picking up. The trout's getting stronger. The snook's just getting back. The redfish are strong. It's getting better. I hope it's going to be better like it was, you know, earlier on in the 2000s.
Well, I'll tell you what. Now, back in talking about the Wayback Machine, going way back to you know, the late 1970s in Charlotte Harbor.
Yeah,
I mean, we're definitely seeing a spawning season for the snook, for the trout, for the reds. It seems to be almost an extra month here because, you know, back in the 70s we get those cold snaps. We get a clear definition between winter, spring, summer, fall, and most of the fish spawning would fall within those, you know, those ranges that were pretty clear cut. But with this whole, whatever it is, climate change, global change, whatever the hell you want to call it, that's politically correct today, whatever that is, it seems that the fish actually are having a longer spawning season because of the warmer waters. And I think that's also, you know, in some ways, some things hurt, some ways they help. You know, I've always said that, look at the manatee on the Caloosahatchee. If it wasn't for that coal power plant up there, the manatee would be probably gone from that area. So
exactly,
the coal may hurt the environment in one way, but in another way, the coal is saving the manatee. So it's kind of strange how this symbiotic relationship builds between people and fish and nature. But so I think that with these extended warm periods that we're seeing, that we're getting a kind of a longer spawning season for the game fish that we need to replenish. So it's kind of a plus in that nature.
Yeah, and they're eating more, they're getting bigger, and you're right about the spawning. You know, they're spawning. They don't have to go, well, we need to hurry up. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they got a longer, and even the bass, they grow. You know, longer it's warm, they grow that extra inch. I think it's an inch every year.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, and I don't, you know, every species different, you know.
Well, yeah, I was talking to a fellow up here. He's over in Arcadia in DeSoto County. He fishes the north end of the Peace River and some of the finger parts of the river up there. And he says one of the problems they're seeing with these extended warm periods is that there are so many adult bass that they deplete the next year's species because they're wiping out their juvies just to eat as the water gets a little bit thinner and it stops raining. And
yeah, so, that's real bad.
Yeah, you know, and it does happen when you get these secluded estuaries, even though they may be annually supported. When you get these secluded estuaries, you get an overabundance of big bass in there, and they'll actually wipe out their own population. And so, but with that being said, there's some big bass being caught up the Peace River right now. So definitely get out there. Even Shell Creek in Charlotte County, they're catching some big bass out in Shell Creek right now.
Yeah, these right now in these residential ponds, everybody needs to hit right now because, you know, if you don't have a boat, you know, it's easy to go out here and catch a trophy fish, like the big catfish I caught on top water the other day.
Beautiful. That was a beautiful.
Oh, it scared me, Frank. I was sitting there. I thought I had a world record bass, and I wasn't screaming manly. I thought I had a huge bass on, and I'm telling you, man. And then I saw that big head. I'm like, what?
What is that? I looked at it. My wife's standing there and said, "Hey, Bridget, look at this. If that bass was about if that catfish was 2 inches longer, he'd be noodling out there for that." Reminds me of those Mississippi cats that they catch.
Yeah, you won't catch me doing that crazy stuff. You know, I'm country and I eat fish, hunt, did all that stuff. But you will see me grabbing nothing out of no hole or, you know. Oh, no. My luck, I grab a turtle or something, man.
You know, I tell you what, I spend too much time on the water and in nature out here to play that. A matter of fact, I've got a friend that loves snakes, you know, and he's like, come over and take out, I get this new timber rattler. I'm like, friend, I stepped on too many rattlers out there fishing freshwater out on Burnt Store Road. I don't need to see one in your aquarium, so no thank you.
I know. What is wrong with you, man? Right? Yeah. My wife was walking last night, and the ponds I test out around the house, yeah, gator walks across the road. Yeah. She's like, oh, I gotta take another path now, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? I used to work at a golf course down here. It's been a long time, decades ago, and you know, we'd always have gators that would get in those ponds. And back then, before they really came back with a vengeance like they have, they were getting depleted pretty bad. So the state had strict restrictions on them. And they wouldn't move them. So as soon as the female gator had a nest, they say basically live with it and stay away from it. And you get a female that has a nest, I'll tell you what, folks, you're out there freshwater fishing. Most gators will leave you alone. They're really not going to bother you. I've actually been standing right next to them on the edge of the water and didn't even see them laying there and went, oh my God, and walked away. And you know, it didn't. Now don't do that, you know, but it didn't mess with me. But,
or have a little dog, or when people feed them, that's where they're messed up, and that's when you know when people are feeding them when they come out of the water and they sit by you.
You know, that's the two biggest problems we have in the state of Florida right now are people that are feeding alligators and people that are feeding pelicans and birds out on fishing piers and on the beach.
And the dolphins too. You know, they people, you know, they need to let them do their own things. You know.
Well, you know, back in the 70s, and this is true, when I was growing up, it was very, very popular to go out here and swim up to a bunch of manatee and feed them some cattail roots. They love those, and everybody would get a picture of them. And we had no idea. We thought, you know, we're just playing with nature and we're getting some pictures, and had no idea that, you know, we were interrupting their little herd of calves and into their feeding cycle, and even making the mistake of letting them get close to people that weren't all that bright and would hurt them. So, you know,
Yeah.
people interacting with nature is nice and great at the zoo, and is nice and great at the, you know, the pet store. But you're out there fishing, you're out there boating and stuff. You don't want to start feeding birds and alligators, and you know, most of them are very aggressive species. I mean, even the nice fun birds, you feed them too much and they're going to come down and start picking at your hair to look for food. And,
one did that to my mom. She like ripped her hair out. I'm like, what are you doing?
oh, they will. I mean, they do get brave, and people don't realize, especially an alligator on fresh water. You feed that alligator, and it doesn't see that chicken as food. It sees you and everything in front of it that appears to be hot with heat food, and it goes for it. You know.
That's right.
But too funny. How you making out on the freshwater? So yeah, I know you're you're getting into some bass out there, some bluegill, some good fishing.
Yeah, all these residential ponds always hit. Toll road ponds, you want to go fishing, like 528, the Kissimmee around Orlando. Any little ponds you could get access, you know. Just be careful of the signs and stuff. Don't get in trouble. I just rip them out. No, I'm just joking. But put a little piece of paper over or something. Nah, but just don't get
It's my new anchor.
Yeah, that's right. Paint and spread.
Too funny.
But just try to not get in trouble, you know. But the resident ponds is like 10 to 12 years old is probably your best. I think I caught over 22 double-digit fish out of these ponds.
Very nice.
Yeah, up to 13.5 pounds is my biggest one.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's using topwater, spinner baits, plastic worms. You know, you have your, you know, few good baits that catches these big ones. And then you have the bluegill. You know, if you got kids or anything, and take them to the pond and get some crickets. If you want to catch some big bluegill, use some crickets with a small hook. You can use cane poles, you know, or a little Zebco with the little bets float with the weight on them. You get them at Walmart. Use night crawlers and stuff. And right now is like prime season right now for the big old bluegill. You know, they just came off the beds and they're feeding really heavy. And then you got catfish, like I caught that huge. I didn't know that thing was in there, but that thing was huge.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but you catch a lot of trophy fish in there because everybody looks at it and just drives by. Some offices, you know, where they got doctors' offices and little businesses and colleges. Go to colleges. They a lot of them got a lot of lakes there, and they let you fish there as long as you release them. Every college I go to, the bass fish or anything, they let you, as long as you don't throw trash around and you know, use your topwater, spinner baits. You know, just get out there and try to catch a big bass and some good fish in there.
You know, it's true, and you never know, like what your catfish, you never know what you're going to pull out. I've been down here at Burnstorm Marina. There's a bunch of freshwater lakes along Charlotte Harbor at Burnstorm Marina, and most of them were naturally there. And a couple of them in the back, when they started developing the community, they put these overflow drain pipes in them so that if it rained really heavy, it will wash out to the Charlotte Harbor area. And now when you get a super high tide or a hurricane comes in, all that salt water backs up through the pipes and goes and into the freshwater area and brings fish with it. So for quite a few years out there, you know, you go fishing with it. Just like you said, you get a little beetle spin on one of those little Zepcos. For a couple of bucks at Walmart, you could pick that up. And we were actually catching snook out of that little freshwater lake. You know, they backflowed through the pipe. And I'll tell you what, now you're right, Scotty. Anybody that wants to go out there and do some fishing, shoreline fishing, pond-to-pond fishing, you know, and the state of Florida, we got to mention too that if you're over 65, it doesn't cost you anything for the license. So, you know, you do have to register. You got to go up and get your little green card. They give you a little green license, but it doesn't cost you anything. And so you can go out there and have a good time and not really even have to pay for the license. So that's really cool too.
Yeah, you can relax, and you know, you can sit down and have your kids out there and just really catch some big, nice fish, you know. And it's just, I enjoy it. I don't have to take the boat out, but then I test my stuff too in these ponds, and then I take them to the lakes, and you don't have to go to the lake and drop the boat and spend gas, and it's just so much fun catching big fish out of little small waterways.
Well, you get that controlled environment. It's all kind of bottlenecked in there, and like you said, because people don't take fish out of there, and they get really big when you're releasing them. But I'll tell you what too. Now here in Charlotte County, we have a lot of overflow lakes like around Zemmel Road and areas like that. And if you catch a nice bass out of those, keep them, because if you don't, they're probably going to rot and die, and nothing's going to eat them. I mean, it really is a rotten mess when that happens, when these lakes dry up. So especially now, because there's such an abundance of adults on some of these estuaries that overflow and end up full of fish. So yeah, definitely, we've got bass everywhere right now too. I think the same thing with the warmer weather, the extra rain. There's just a lot of food. You said crickets, which is some great advice, because there's crickets every place out there right now, frogs every place. Chris went up the Peace River, and he says he got a bass he fought quite a bit with. When he got it to the boat and picked it up, it actually burped up a big frog. It was so full of frogs from eating them up there. So they're definitely going after the frogs and all that natural bait everywhere now.
Yeah, that's what I like using. Like, something that imitates that frog like that. My favorite impact lure, that I call it the Precious,
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
because
beautiful.
I catch everything on that fish. I'm taking it saltwater fishing Saturday with me too. I'm gonna try it out there. But
well, that color,
anything with frogs, crickets, especially after it rains, then they go into spawning mode, and all the little tadpoles and stuff, and a lot of bullfrogs are hopping around, and the bass, they know that, and they start feeding on that. And the crickets, I love fishing them on the cable. I haven't done it in a long time, but no weight, just that little gold hook, throw it out there, and that cricket's on top of the water. You will actually catch bass, catfish on it, big bluegill. I mean, you just catch everything on it. The big red breast, I don't know if we have them down here. They're mostly in Jacksonville area, but yeah, and warmouth, you catch warmouth, you catch all the good species.
Yeah, there are some pretty fish, and in fact, when the rain started, I was talking to one of our fishing pros out here in Arcadia, supposed fishing pros, and we'll find out next month when he starts giving us some information out there. But he claims that as the water pH drops and it increases, it betters the chances of fishing and catching the big bass out there. And according to him, the acid in the water, the pH keeps dropping below 7, which is neutral, until the rains come. And then when the rains come and the rains bring the pH back up to neutral again, generally the bass get more aggressive. They start their spawning cycle, and that's the time to really fish for them. Which it makes sense, but the problem is that when the rains come, all the fish start hitting. So that's good advice for any of them. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it a pH thing or a rain thing?
Especially when they're in a smaller area of water where the fish actually get stressed out because they're running out of water. And their food supply's gone. And it's bringing more fruit. I mean, because a lot of frogs and a lot of little snakes, rats, and everything. I mean, a little small acre pond. I mean, they can't keep on depending on the bluegill or natural resources, so they got to depend on the nature of the insects. And that catfish I caught, it was eating the big old bluegill.
Oh yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, because I thought it was a bass crashing right there. I'm like, oh my God, that's a bit. And channel cat, they eat a lot of live bait. So if they run out of that, they're in trouble.
And that's what happens, and that's why I say it's one thing to have these annual estuaries that are supported year round with tidal flow, and you guys up there, when you get up to Crystal and you get up to Lake Placid, Florida, in that area around Okeechobee and north of that, all those natural springs eventually flow down to us. And as a matter of fact, Shell Creek is one of the exits for one of you guys' springs up there just inside of Tampa, where they get their drinking water. So you guys definitely, you see the flow of water coming from all the way up in North Florida down to here, and as it's making its way down here, there is just a lot of food that gets washed into the water. And those estuaries themselves maintain really nicely year-round, so you could, you release the fish. There's plenty of predators. There's plenty of water to support them. But you get into these secluded ponds and these lakes that are really cut off, And you really don't have a whole lot of choice other than getting those fish out of there, because if you don't, you're going to have no oxygen, you're going to have no food, they're just going to be wasting the water from the fish. That's going to eventually drop the pH and make it too acidic. In fact, when you start catching bass and you can see they get pink spots on them, they start getting like a fungus or an infection or a bacteria on their scale, it's usually because that water is, the quality goes so low when that rain stops that they're going to die, and everything in the water is going to die. So
yeah, especially you got runoffs, like all the pesticides, fertilizers, exactly. And then they get that green layer, it kills the oxygen. Low water, like where it's really shallow, a lot of sun damage, because some of these ponds don't have a lot of cover. Mostly grass lines, and they try to hide it, every little thing. And most of you catch these big bass is like around the culverts.
Yep.
And yeah, you throw a top water weather, you usually catch the majority of the bigger fish right there.
Well, I tell you what, too, and I'm glad you mentioned it with the chemical runoff and the fertilizer. Now, folks, we have golf courses all over Florida. We have more golf courses than we have people. And and everybody loves to fish them because they're great freshwater estuaries, little ponds, little areas that run off into these golf courses that flow and have really big bass, big bluegill, a lot of big fish in them. The problem is you really shouldn't eat those fish because there is a very high content of fertilizer and chemical in those ponds. And one of the reasons why they have those ponds, it's not just for to have a pretty golf course, but the environmental department and the local authorities that do this inspection when it's being developed require a certain amount of retention around the course to ensure that fertilizers, chemical runoff, all that is caught and filtered before it runs off into the Gulf of Mexico or Charlotte Harbor or wherever the area is, the Atlantic on the other coast. So it's very important to remember that when you're fishing the golf courses, especially, other places are nice, college universities, they're nice estuaries. Other places have really nice ponds that flow good, but when you're playing in a golf course, probably shouldn't eat the fish out of golf course ponds.
Nah.
Not at all, because they can be very...
I imagine them fish can't be really that spooky, man, because all them balls hitting the water,
It's funny. I love to fish them because they are full of bass. They are definitely full of bass, and they'll hit anything because they're very limited, like you'd say, on their food supply because they're in those little secluded ponds. But but again, it's like I remember seeing a couple of TV shows, comedies like, "Dad, don't eat the fish out of the pond at the golf course, please."
Yeah, because it's got a lot of mercury, all kinds of stuff in them.
And keep in mind, these guys that are spraying, the spray techs that do it, they spray within the the limits that the environmental department gives them. But those limits are really applied to the environment around them, the grass, the wildlife, not to human consumption at all whatsoever.
Yeah, did you see that post where that little girl with Blake Smith caught that little that big bass?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I send that picture so you can show the listeners out there.
Good, I'll check this morning.
Yeah, it's like 8 or 9 pounds, and she's caught on one of the little push button Barbie poles.
Beautiful.
I love that. That is so fun. That's why I used to take my son fishing in them ponds. He was in the car seat. He couldn't really walk yet, and I would throw out the little push button for him. I put a zoom worm on there with a little owner hook, and he would reel, stop, look around, drink his sippy cup, reel again, and all of a sudden he would catch a bass. It was hilarious.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I got pictures of that, man. You'd die laughing looking at that.
Oh yeah, it's great. You know what? Back in the 70s, I think we had back then we had Eckerd Drugs over here in Punta Gorda.
Yeah, Eckerd's. I remember Eckerd's.
Yeah, and you know what? That was like it was like a shopping center, Eckerd's, because that's all we had, and they had a little section in the back corner for fishing stuff. And I think that the totality of what they sold was 1 box of hooks. They had a Johnson Sprite, and they had 3 Zepco push button, those little Zepco spinners. And that was it. So if you wanted to go out and buy some fishing equipment back in 1975 in Punta Gorda, you had a Zepco, a Johnson Sprite, and a hook.
That's right.
And you were happy to have it.
Oh my God, yeah.
And they
were pretty good till you hang a big fish and it rip them up.
You get a big fish and that little reel's going to start smoking.
Yeah. Why is it crunching?
Yeah, but they work. We did catch fish. And they still
Yeah.
work. Like you said, they still work.
Yeah, especially just don't mess them in salt water too much, or definitely rinse them out. But when you get it fishing in salt water, it kind of rubs them up pretty good. Because I have friends who are like, why are you fishing that? You know, that's not going to work the next time. You better wash it good, you know, and then the next day it won't reel.
My dad
Yeah,
does that.
it froze it up, you
He
know.
come by with some reel. I think he bought it at Walmart up here about 6 months ago. And, you know, they don't tell you. I like to walk around Walmart and just look at their stuff, just kind of window shop. And, you know, I'm looking at their rods and reels and their setups, and I'm trying to figure out which ones are fresh or which ones are salt. And I guess they purposely don't label them because, you know, they all rust up no matter if they're fresh or salt. They're all good. So he bought one of those setups. He comes by the other day and he's like, shows me, and I'm like, what's the matter? Well, the reel, you know, when you turn it, the little spinner handle, it won't turn, and it's hurting my fingers. And I looked at it, and I put a little oil on there, and I kind of gave it a little bit of a turn to get it loose, and it just broke right off the reel. And,
Oh, no.
you know, I'm like, well, the problem is that this is a piece of crap.
Oh, my God.
we can't
you
fix
gotta,
that.
Yeah. You gotta be careful what you buy, you know, and then, you know, oh, it's pretty, man, and it just fall off, you know.
Dad's old school, you know, he's running around looking for, he bought some line. I was telling him, we went out fishing, and he tried to use a lure. He had, I think, 30-pound test on a little 15-pound spinner, and he's casting about 3 foot in front of him. And I'm like, you know, you can't use that. This ain't 1975 anymore. You know, you got to go out and get some braided line. You can get braided line that's 40-pound test that casts like 8-pound test. So he goes out and he buys himself some 8-pound test. And he buys the cheapest stuff he could get. So, you know, I'm looking at him like, you ain't going to like this, Dad. I'm telling you, first of all, you can't even see the line to tie it up. And he takes one cast, you know, he's just got a rat's nest. I mean, just, you know, that cheap line.
You always got to use good stuff now. I learned. I mean, that's why I use red bone rods and, you know, Abba Garcia is the best line you can do because, you know, I'm fishing for, you know, big money. And you don't want to lose that trophy fish either, you know.
You know what?
You just want to...
Scotty, I'll tell you what, yesterday I was out, I spent about 6-7 hours out there casting. I was using a cheaper Garcia. And Chris, he grabbed it and he played with it for a second. He goes, try this one out. And I grabbed this rod, put the same bait on there. That rod that I was holding was at least a pound lighter. It casted like a dream. I mean, my shoulder that was hurting and my elbow that was hurting from casting just didn't even bother me. Couldn't even feel the rod in my hand. It was so light. And, you know, that's the difference between a $75 setup and a $200 setup.
Yeah, it's worth it, you know. But, you know, you could go a little bit cheaper, but, you know, the reel, it won't last me 6 months. So I got to start buying a little bit higher end, you know, quality reels. Mm-hmm. You know, I tried the Red Garcia out. It's, you know, I think it's like $34-50. It's a bait caster. But it's already given me problems. I need to go up to like the $80 to $130 ones because I don't like the fish, the low profiles. They won't last me at all. I burn them up quick. I need the bigger spool. You know what I'm talking about? You saw them in the pictures, the bigger red ones.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's beautiful. And you know what? About $100 is what you're going to spend on a good reel anymore. If it's going to last, the way you guys are using them, the pro staffers. If you're out there fishing, you know, a couple of times a week, and come on, nobody goes out and fishes for 10 minutes. You're going to spend a few hours out there and really wear on it. So that $100, it's going to, you know, in a year's time, instead of buying two $50 reels, buy $100 reel, and it'll last you 2 or 3 years. Take care of it, you know. So it's true.
Yeah, they tell me, gosh, I had this reel for 5 years, and I'm looking at them. I'm like, 5 years? How do you do that? I could go. My average year, I probably go through about 4 bait casters a year, and that's pretty, you know. The higher end bait casters, that's what I'm hanging, the snook and the redfish. But I'm using bass tackle, hanging big tarpon too, you know. I mean, it ain't made for that, but I'm casting lures, you know.
Yeah, and it works, you know. It does take its toll on the pole and the reel eventually, but they do work out good. And you know, the money, you figure about how much a month is going to last you for how long, for the price you pay for it. So, you know, you put $100, $200 in a reel and rod, and you know, if it costs you $10 a month or so, by the time it's cooked, or by the time you get your use out of it, you're still getting a pretty good deal out of that setup. So you really can't beat getting a good rod and reel combo setup. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love them ribbon rods. It's pretty neat. I'm out there bass. You know, I'm using bass tackle for these fish. My line's 15-pound Berkeley trilene.
Yep.
On my spinners, I use spider wire, 10-pound test. I use that on the redfish tour for long sight fishing casting.
Oh yeah.
But and then I use like 30-pound shock leader is actually Berkeley trilene, big game, low vis. All my line's green too. I love the low vis green.
Yeah, it does good. Yeah, I'm actually using the Proline green. I like the way it looks on the water, and it casts nice too. I like the Proline too. But yeah,
well, it don't have that glitter in the water. I think the glare actually, you know, even with fluorocarbon, if they see that glare, if I could see it in the water, you know, the fish are going to see it. But on our side, the water's pretty much, it's got like a greenish tint on it. It's laying on the ground, you know, we got green grass, so when you're pulling that jig on there, it's blending in with the grass too, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And you're right, you know, the water around here does have that beige tea kind of greenish look to it, and the line does lay, and when you have anything that's darker like that, the green color, instead of reflecting light, it absorbs it. And I know what they talk about, their transparency with the fluorocarbon and all that, but if you look at fluoro underwater and look up at it, and I have done it, looked up from underwater at it at the surface, you can see that distortion in the water where that fluoro is running on a leader. And with the green, you don't see it. It actually disappears in the background because it actually absorbs light. It doesn't reflect it. And so it does make a big difference. I do like that color. You're right.
Yeah, the low vis green, it just knocks out the glare, you know, and the water, you know, even darker water, it really helps. It just camouflages in, you know. Now, the real crystal clear water, I use the Berkeley Vanish. And I have to go to the 15 to 20, you know, when it's that's real light, the fish for redfish. But it works really good. But still, I just like the green better. I catch more fish off the low vis green, you know, when I did the comparison and stuff, and a lot more and bigger fish off the green.
Oh yeah, and like you said though, you know, you're matching the water's color, so you're not seeing a big difference between the water and actually the line when they meet, and it makes a difference. I've played with a couple of different lures, and you know, and they all say that, you know, you want that natural look. Excuse me, you want that natural look and the natural action of the lure, and I've seen it myself. I use leaders and lines that tied up with a messy knot or a dirty looking knot. And the fish will hit the knot, or they're going to hit the, you know, the area of the water that they see the line moving and think it might be a fin. Who knows? Maybe it might be a needlefish. Who knows what they think? But
yeah, I don't know why they do that. I had ladyfish actually grab on my line, you know.
Matter of fact,
and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they'll do it. The only time I've ever lost a topwater lure on a mackerel, and it actually came up and it hit the lure in front. I watched it. It came up and it almost intercepted the lure, and it hit it right in the front and cut right through the fluoro leader with its teeth as soon as it hit it. And so it was going after the line and not the lure. And yeah, it does happen. Definitely.
Yeah, I guess it had a flat. I don't know. It's weird. I had that happen a couple times, you know, where ladyfish actually grab on the line and like.
Sure. Say, you know, it can't be totally transparent or translucent because that fish definitely hit the leader. So that even the translucent fluoro, they see it and they hit it. You know what it is too, Scotty? I think a lot of the times it's the vibration. You know, when we start working the top water and we're jerking a line, my guess is that the fish senses that heavier leader, because most of us, we're going from, like you say, a 15-pound line to a 30 or 40-pound leader, and I think the fish actually senses the vibration of the leader in front of the bait jerking back and forth. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right on that, because it's putting a shock wave in there.
Yeah,
all the way.
We even buy these little shads and these little jerk baits where their tails create that little shock wave, that little turbulence in the water to strike. And I think the line does that if you're not careful with too heavy of a leader. And I do that. I'm so afraid of losing the fish. I'll put a real heavy leader on, and I think the fish might see that leader as part of the bait and hit it. Yeah,
because I fish really light, and it's scary. You know, I'm fighting a fish, and it's really, I mean, we catch a lot of big snook and everything. Now, I do lose some tarpon. I'll lose a lot of tarpon, because I'm using such a light leader. But
Yeah.
I'm mostly going for the big trout, the snook, and the reds. The tarpon really get in the way, and the nooses, especially around the Anclote River area. You know where that is, don't you?
Just outside of north of Tampa, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Tarpon Springs area. They got a lot of little barrier islands in the river system, a lot of food, coming out of that river where it's freshwater to saltwater meets. They got a lot of barrier islands, a lot of little small 30, 40 tarpon, pound tarpon in there. And you'll hang about seven or 10 of them a night, and maybe land one. Yeah, it's fun.
I'm actually looking at that now. That's around just north of Palm Harbor there. Beautiful area. Yeah, that's a nice little tuck away. You got some barrier islands. It looks like almost a half a mile out.
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, that's one of the guides' one of the main areas they fish. It's a lot of stuff. Now the Anclote, the island out from it, past a mile, from the channel over there. It holds tarpon, big sharks, big trout, everything. That's where everything goes on right there, right now, especially the mackerel and the big sharks.
It looks beautiful. Anclote Key Preserve State Park is right there, and I could see that where the water flows. So it must be the north end of the intercoastal up there.
Yeah, it is. And that cut through the two little islands in there,
Yep.
There's like a sandbar, and it's on to your right. I think it's on the north side of the island. You catch a lot of big sharks in there. I mean, you catch 400 to 500 pound bull sharks, kingfish through that pass, snooks going about another couple more weeks. They'll be all over that island. It's a real pretty island that you can park your boat on there. You can camp. They actually camp on them islands too.
Oh, I'll bet. It's beautiful. I can imagine the water that comes through there, just flushing through the south end of that preserve between the two islands is just awesome. Nice area.
Yeah, and it's clear. It's got a real pretty green tint to it. It's really nice water. It's fun. That's when it's fun to go out when we do the shark fishing at night, because I start doing a lot of shark fishing too.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go on the island and we'll have you take your family out, whoever you make a trip and have hot dogs, hamburgers, put up your tent, and then we would go out and we'd go shark fishing and snook fishing. It's a great time to have, to do that.
Oh, yeah, and the weather right now is perfect for it. See, Scotty's up there in the Newport Richey area, and he was just talking about how green that water is, and that's about where the Emerald Coast of Florida starts. And, that's why they call it that. You get up to the wildlife refuge just north of that, and you get around to the Emerald Coast and up into Apalachicola and all that up there. But it's just beautiful water. I've been on the south end of Clearwater fishing over at, DeSoto Park down there. And
yeah, DeSoto is a really good another place, good fishing. Right now, DeSoto and around the Egmont Key and everything, the Skyway Fishing Pier. If you don't have a boat or anything, fish the pier right now. All the baits right there. You're going to catch cobia. You're going to catch kingfish. Big cobia are like 30, 40 pounders off that bridge right now.
Oh, nice.
At the Skyway. And Fort DeSoto, the big redfish. Yeah, man, I told it. The big redfish are here right now. I mean, 15, 20 pounders right now.
Oh, it's nice.
And the big snook should be pushing in there probably another couple of weeks. They'll get out there doing their spawning thing around them little islands out there by the toll road.
Well, I'll tell you what, too, folks. Fort DeSoto is a state park. And they have little cabins in there. They have an area if you have an RV. They have a boat launch there. So you could actually go to the state park's website and reserve a cabin or reserve an RV spot or whatever you want to do. Bring a little boat with you if you have one and really have a good time out there. It's you got to get in there early. Right now it's very busy. There's a lot of people getting in there, especially for the fishing. But it is a pretty cool place to go online and go to floridastate.gov. And just check out the wildlife state parks that you could reserve a little cabin in. Very cool place.
Yeah, actually, if you're making a plan, you got to make maybe a month or two. I mean, it's always packed this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it's a pretty, when the sun goes down, beautiful pictures. I posted some of the pictures in that area, actually. of the sun going down. The water's clear on the flats. You got Ruskin area, good fishing. That's where I do a lot of fishing too for redfish. But try to stay on the flats if you got a small boat. Current's pretty strong, you know, in the middle of the around the bridges. Now, if the tide's going out, you want to get around the, you know, don't get too close to the Skyway pier where people can hit you and everything. But you set up on that break out there, and they got rock piles out there. You want to kind of fish where it kind of eddies out a little bit. That's where them big cobia are going to sit. All the good mackerel, sharks. They got Goliath grouper out there. They got grouper. They catch a lot of keeper grouper on that pier. It's just a fun place, and there's plenty of bait. If you don't have a cast net, get a sabiki. You could actually put Procure on it. You could go to Walmart and get the little, I think it's Bumblebee, and it's dry squid.
Oh, wow.
And I like number 8 sabiki rig, and then use a heavy drop shot on that. You might want to use an ounce because you're going to catch a lot of big herring out there, and they will tangle your stuff up really bad. So you want to kind of have a heavier weight on it. But cut the little squid pieces and, you know, put it on each of the little hooks and throw it down, and you catch your, you know, you catch your bait right there. And on the pinfish out there, for the sharks and the big cobias, I kind of use a little wire leader because it keeps it down for the current. And then I use a balloon rig, and then I catch a lot of cobias out there when I'm mackerel fishing. And when you got your chum bag out, I have a balloon rig, and then I have a free line out in back of the chum block, and that's where you're going to get that cobia, because that actually come up there and look at your chum block, because you got so many bait fish and everything in there. And I actually catch a lot of 40-50 pound cobia dropping about 10 to 15 feet back.
Very nice, very nice. And I'll tell you what, the chum does work with a fish like cobia. They could smell it a mile away, and once they find that chum line and they start following it, like you say, just a matter of time before your bait is right in front of them. So yeah, definitely. I tell you, Scotty, that area is beautiful. I mean, that whole 275, the Skyway, you know, the Shell Key Preserve area. I mean, that whole area is just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so fun out there. You got deep water access up there. You know, up here my way, it gets too hot, so you know I have to go down to Tampa and start fishing because it's a little bit deeper water. Mm-hmm. You know, and you got abundance of big fish coming through there too.
Well, it's huge. I mean, the port of Tampa, I mean, all the waterways are very deep. I mean, very deep to carry some of those freighters through there. So whether you're, like you said, whether you're playing with trout on the flats, or you want to go out and play with bluefish, or you want to get into mackerel, or I'm sure if I got off the coastline a little bit out there, you have bonita out there and all that good stuff too. So there's
actually they catch it on the pier. They actually catch they catch the bonita on the pier. You check it out and check out the Skyway fishing pier. They got all pictures of what they catch on there, and it's relaxing, you know.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I don't even pack my boat up. I fish off the bank. I don't wade no more. I get kind of scared of, you know, the shark there.
there's a lot of shark, and I tell you what. I take a blood thinner, and the last
little cut, you know.
The last thing I need is a stingray to smack me in the leg, and I end up bleeding to death running for the shore. So
yeah, that's bad, because one of my friends just got stuck, and I'm like, well, did you wear shoes? Well, no. Well, you gotta wear tennis shoes or something. Buy some cheap tennis shoes are like the best. If you know, they're like $5 or $6. They're the best, you know, to wear instead of the little swimmy booties and all that. You know, you're going to get hurt. You got to be careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You know, and nothing else. I tell you what I really hate are those spider crabs. I could live with the blue claws and the stingray, but those spider crabs, I don't know.
They're ugly, man.
They're
just
gross.
so ugly.
And they freak me out when I see them, man. They're just gross.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them out there that way too. They're just gross. And the tarpon's going off too, Frank, right now in at the Skyway Pier, and right there in front of Egmont and all that, they're using past crabs. A lot of them, they use a live finger mullet or bigger mullet. About another month, they'll start pushing up into the bay, and they'll be up in the closer bridges up, like the Gandy, the Howard Frank. And the Gandy's the best bridge I like fishing. It's like June and August, and all the way up till it gets kind of cold. You catch a lot of 30, 40 pound tarpon right there on each side of the St. Pete side's probably my favorite. You catch snook and everything on that side.
Oh yeah, you know, we get the same thing here. You know, like you say, about another month or so, the tarpon down here start to move up into the Peace River, and you're getting some juvies up there right now. There's some smaller ones that are, you know, jetting around that have hatched. But you know, right now, I think, like you say, about a month or so, we get up to the power lines up the Peace River, and
yeah,
boy, you know, you just pull like a rattle trap behind the boat, about 4 knots or so, one of those silver black ones, the 1 ouncer. And boy, they just seem to love those things. The tarpon just like they, you know, they run about 4 foot under the surface, and they make enough noise and shine enough to get some attention. But yeah, you know, another month, like you said, they're going to be up in the estuaries, getting up into the harbors and the bays, and be some good fishing. I love, you know, you could actually see them from the 41 bridge rolling all around the harbor in about a month or so. You see that shine. And
yeah, and early in the morning, and they're, oh yeah, that's what happens in the Gandy area too, because they're following the bait up. You know, the bait's already up there, but then they made that transition. They're staging out. Yeah, that rattle trap works good. That's like one of my favorite snook baits in Tampa too.
It is, you know, they work nice. They're shiny, and they got, I like the black top, the black and chrome one. And
yeah, that's my favorite right there, the half. I think it's the half.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good not only for that, but even if you're playing with snook around the docks and you just want to get some attention real quick, and you could drop it next to a dock and pull it from the shore out. And if there's a snook under there, if it's not hungry, you'll piss it off enough to attack it. So 1 or 2 will happen, you know. Yeah,
I caught some, especially around Picnic Island. They got a pier out there. I caught my first snook actually out there with a love lure. That's a good place to fish too if you don't have a boat or nothing like that too.
Boy, you know, those love lures still were good. And, you don't hear about them too much anymore because they were so popular years ago. But they did that kind, even that kind of rigging with any bait, that soft bait works really good like a love lure.
I mean, I love them because it looks like a bait fish. When you pop it, they go everywhere.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah, they definitely look like bait fish running.
Yeah, mackerel. I caught snook. I actually caught a cobia off of it. So big snook off of them. Trout, flounder, and that's just an awesome bait. I mean, I put my Phantom 12s on them. If the love lures don't work anymore, I just put my slams on it.
Yep.
Or my the saltwater the Sammies. Yeah, and they're really good, and they work real well on that too. But that's a real good lure to use. I mean, if you really want to throw a lure and it's kind of a deeper water, that's actually a real good lure to use.
Oh yeah, I love them. You know, I've mimicked them many times. A couple of times I've even taken topwater baits and tied a long leader on it, put a little jig under it or a little salty dog, any kind of a soft bait, and jerked it around like a love lure. But yeah, like you said, that action of bait fish taking off scared is definitely entices some strike.
I think this triggers them. You know, they probably not even really hungry, but just way the action, how they fall and die. You know.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's what it does. And I caught some big fish off them lures.
Oh, yeah, they'll definitely get them going. But I'll tell you what, Scotty, I can't believe we've been going for over an hour now. But
I know, that's why every time we get together, we talk about fishing. We go, oh, man, it's fun, though. I hope, you know, our listeners are learning some. Any questions that you need to ask me and Frank, post your pictures. Tell me what you think about the page, the FishyFins, and my sponsors, Redbone Rod, Aqua Dream Spoons, Procure, Phantom 12s, Impact Lures. Check them all out, and we'll see y'all next week.
Absolutely, and I sure do appreciate it, Scotty. I definitely always learn something when I talk to you, so I definitely appreciate it. And we're going to get this up. I'm going to try to get this posted for the weekend so people have some incentive to get out there and do a little fishing.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I got to get down there and go fishing with you because I love that area down there.
Boy, I am ready. I've got 10 different boat ramps we could pick from, no matter where you want to go, whether it's out in the blue water or up in the river.
Okay.
I'm ready to go, baby. So you just let me know and we go fishing.
Yeah, hopefully we'll do good. I'm going to try to leave early. I got to test some impact. I think that chartreuse is really going to work, you know?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to check it out. That's going to be the next one I get. I might look at, he's got a shad that's a electric chicken color, and I might try that because that color's so damn good around here. So I might try that one first. But I'm definitely going to, I've got the green one, your green monster, your precious.
You got the precious? Oh man, that's my favorite.
yeah, we got that. I got actually 2 of them. I got the purple and I got the precious. So I'm actually going to go out and play with that this afternoon. So cool.
Okay, you'll love that one, Frank. It's a good lure.
Well, I'm going to go fresh. I'm not using a leader, so I think the action should be really sweet on it. And
yeah, the precious is for fresh water. I mean, I'm going to go try in saltwater, but that's the lure I can't quit testing, you know?
When it works, you love to use it.
Yeah, I know. All right, I'll see you later.
Hey, you have a great day, Scotty. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Yeah, it's true. You know, there are just some beautiful waters in Florida to fish, and you can really come out here and have a great time, whether you're freshwater fishing, saltwater fishing. You know, Scott knows how to have a good time. He's lived out here his whole life, and, you know, he's fished the Gulf waters up and down, so he knows the area well, both offshore and inland. And as a matter of fact, we got our high-definition cameras in, so we're going to be sending Scott out a high-definition camera, and we're going to get some great video and pictures of him fishing out there, working these baits, showing us how to use some of that Pro-Cure impact lure, stuff like that. So we just got him in yesterday. We're charging him up overnight, did charge him overnight, and we're going to start testing them today, get them all set up and send them out to our pro staffers. So great stuff. So we should have some great video. And Scott, I sure appreciate it, bud. That was a great conversation about fishing Florida. Whether you're on freshwater or saltwater, folks, you can have a great time out here. You know, it doesn't cost you much money. You go up to the store for a few bucks, get yourself set up on a nice little rig, catch some bluegill, little bass, sand brim, sheephead. Whether you're on fresh or saltwater, you can really have a good time for not too much money. So thanks a lot, Scott. I sure appreciate that. Our next show should have some video in it, and we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be going fishing with Scott pretty soon. So I'm going to kind of try to get some video up here to really tempt him into coming down to Charlotte Harbor and do a little redfish and snook fishing. So I'm going to get some video posted so I can really entice Scott into coming down here. And I sure appreciate it, Scott. Yeah, you folks have a great day. You see me coming with a mic and a camera, just give me a great fish story. I'd appreciate it. We'll put it on the air and we'll make you famous. Have a great day.